Mr. Chairman, I want to follow up on the line of questioning you were working on. The supplemental appropriations relating to the 3 hurricanes will be moving through Congress. One has already moved through, and I don't believe there is anything in that for the Coast Guard. So that brings me to the point I want to make, in that the Coast Guard needs to tell us in very specific terms exactly what the needs are, both in terms of the personnel and the additional expenses that were directly associated with the 3 hurricanes, and also with the infrastructure. And it has to, in my view, it has to be facility by facility, and there has to be pictures. Lumping it all together doesn't really tell the story. We know that the Florida Keys were pretty well flattened. Certainly Puerto Rico is, and undoubtedly Coast Guard facilities on Puerto Rico were damaged. Similarly, Harvey. So very specific information. Site by site, I was just looking at the Matthew information here, and there is some specific information by facility. But frankly, it doesn't mean anything without both a more explicit description of exactly what the damage was, and frankly, photos. The pictures tell 1,000 words, and we need that to drive home the necessity for the money to repair the facilities. Similarly, we must do this soon. And I use the word we, it's you and us. If we're going to be able to obtain the money for the repairs of the facilities, it is now, like now. The Congress will be moving forward on supplemental appropriations for Puerto Rico, probably more for Houston, and certainly Irma along the way. So I'm sure you're sending this information up through the Department of Homeland Security and OMB. It will undoubtedly find its way into a black hole and never see the light of day. But I'm asking you specifically now for that information for this committee and for our use in designing and forming the Coast Guard part of the supplemental appropriations. If you'd like to comment on that and how soon you can deliver that to us, it would be helpful, both on the personnel side and on the infrastructure side.
Well, I can address the infrastructure side, Ranking Member Garamendi. Thank you for that. And I do have some pictures that I'd be happy to show, and I can speak to the details. So if we can get to the first slide, and I'll speak through or address each of these photos. And regarding the numbers and the listing of all the damages that we have, I'll provide that to you. We've got a list by unit, both for Harvey and Irma. And as I said, we're developing Maria estimates and assessing all the damage there, and we'll provide that to you. I'll also ensure that you get that unfunded priorities list.
Are these your photos?
They are.
Can you flip through them quickly?
This is Harvey damage, and you can see Port Aransas. That's one of our coastal search and rescue stations, small boat stations. There you can see the nature of the damage to the boathouse and the facility there. In fact, that facility is a total loss. Both the waterfront was damaged, so all the piers that the boats tie up to, the boathouse, and the station.
Inoperable now.
It's, we are doing some operations, but they're from trailers and from trailering boats and those types of activities. We can't operate out of that unit. Next. So here's Station Port O'Connor, another coastal station. That's the boathouse. You can see the roofs have been destroyed. There's also damage to the waterfront, and then there was wind and water intrusion into all of the facilities that are the shoreside facilities. So they all suffered significant damage. Next. Station Key West. Several stations there, Station Key West, Sector Key West, Marathon, and Isla Morado housing were all damaged. I think we have some other pictures there, but that's the waterfront. This is the Marathon housing. You can see the roofs opened, water damage throughout, pretty much a total loss of all those facilities. Next. So this is Station San Juan. Both San Juan and Barranquín, which is on the west coast of Puerto Rico, San Juan's on the east coast, was damaged. This is the roof was removed off of the operations center, so you can think of all the radios, all the communications, all flushed with water and basically unusable. We are still operating out of some of the portions of that building. Our repair teams have covered up the roofs to mitigate any further damage, but significant damage through there. Next. This is the Barranquín Community Center. This is indicative of some of the housing damage that we have. The roof was removed there, and as you know, or you may know, that they've endured several inches of rain since those events, so it just continues to incur more water and wind damage. Next. Now, this is important because, as I mentioned in my previous opening statement, when we get an opportunity to rebuild, and this supplemental funding could be that opportunity, we always seek to rebuild to more resilient standards to really harden our infrastructure. What you see up here is OPBAT, our hangar facility in Great Anagua, and then Station Sabine. So Station Sabine was on the coast of Texas, and that was rebuilt after Ike to more resilient standards. Neither of those facilities suffered any significant damage, and folks went right to work out of those facilities immediately after the storms passed. So that's the importance of building to 21st century standards and building a hardened, resilient infrastructure.
Thank you. I believe for us to do our work, we'll need station by station, facility by facility, details, photos, and the like. It seems to me important that we present this information to the appropriate committees that are writing the legislation for the supplemental. I suspect there's a high level of ignorance about the damage that the Coast Guard has sustained and about the cost and the facilities. I am pleased that you are building resiliency into the new facilities or the rebuilt facilities. It would seem that we should require that just as a matter of course, although you seem to be doing it without being told to do it that way. Nonetheless, we ought to make it clear. I would expect that the committees who are responsible for the supplemental are in the process now. And so the information that we need to pass to them is now. So thank you for that. I have no further questions. I yield back.
Thanks, Ranking Member.